Welcome. In this session, we will cover one of the important aspects of work life, wherein we spend probably the most amount of time, and it's extremely important to have the skills to do that effectively. That is writing emails. Irrespective of the profession that you are in, you are an engineer, you are a doctor, you are a professor, you are a lawyer. I mean, it doesn't matter. Probably in each and every profession, communication skills are one of the top most important skills. I think everybody agrees with that. And in the current scenario where emails are the major forms of communication, it's extremely important that we are effective in the way we communicate through emails. And in that, sometimes we do not give as much focus as it really needs to be given. In this particular session, what we'll cover is some of the basic things which will take your email writing skills or communication skill to the next level. It could be basic hygiene, it could be real small tips, yet have good amount of impact in your communication. So we will cover that in the basic skills, and we will also go to advanced skills in writing emails, how you can be more effective in maybe getting things done or being persuasive, being motivative, or all of that. So first we will cover the basic, and then we will move to the advanced part. So as I said, if you are working in any profession, I hope that this particular session will be useful to you. You may be aware of some of these tips. You may be not knowingly maybe applying some of these tips already, or you may get some new ideas which you can apply in your day-to-day work life. Okay, so let's begin. So I'll start with the basic ones first. The first one, right? In email communication, one of the first important point when you go to, let's take any tool, maybe Outlook or maybe Gmail or whatever it is, you open up an email, try to compose an email. First thing you write is who should be the to, and then who should be in the copy, and then BCC if there are any, and then the subject. And the subject is utmost of importance, because when you're communicating to somebody, it has to be something which is catchy as well as something relatable to the audience that you are sending an email. So that is the first and foremost thing you need to keep in mind. If you're initiating a conversation, just simply do not write with something which is not relevant, or something which the reader cannot relate what is it, or anything like that. So one thing you have to think about is it should be relatable to the audience that you are writing an email to, something which will convey that message what you are trying to tell inside the email body. So that is one important thing. And in that, some of the best practices is that in the subject you also mention that this particular one is important or urgent or something like that. So that urgency or importance of the email, you highlight it in a either in uppercase or lowercase, even though if lowercase with some letters, something like urgent or important or anything of that sort, if it is really the case. You can, in tools like Outlook, you can always mark the importance of the email as highly important, etc. But what will be catchy or somebody will quickly open it and check is sometimes when you call out the urgency or the importance of that email in the subject of the email. Okay, because sometimes when somebody is so busy, they just look at the subject even without going through the email body. So if it is catchy, then it becomes very important or useful to get it attended to. Okay, and sometimes if there is a deadline of, let's say, something has to be completed before certain time of the day, say 4 p.m. of a day or whatever it is, right? So you mention the deadline also, if there are anything like that. So the important part here is that you should make it relatable, understandable, giving the importance and urgency, and if there are any deadlines that they should be aware of, etc. So something has to be completed with utmost urgency by so and so date or time, or this particular topic is about so and so topic, which the topic may be something which the two person we have sending the email to is very much aware. And there are many such aspects. We can list down most of the things, but the point here is that it should be something the reader can utilize the information for a quick information, as well as it allows him to open the email and try to check what is it about and how he needs to attend to. Okay, so that's the point about the subject. Some of these are basic hygiene things, and many people and many can be maybe already doing it, but it's something we have to think through. Next time you write the subject, think through how we can make it even more better subject line. And if you're just replying to an email with an already existing subject line, you do not necessarily have to change it unless it is really required. But if you do that, if you change the subject line to make it relevant, then you do mention that particular point in the email body, that you're changing the subject line, because you probably say changing subject line or something like that, so that people are aware. So what happens is some people may be following a subject emails through a chain, and it might get missed out, and things like that might happen. So when you mention that you are changing the subject line, it becomes very clear to the other people, whoever are there on the email. So those are something about the subject. Okay. Now the next thing is second point, which I think it's very important when you are writing an email, is that, let's write it down below, the message. So most often what happens is we're going to try to write an email. It will be a big text, big series of lines, and so much information will be there. Or sometimes, even though it may be a concise email, sometimes the actual message would not be clear. What are you exactly trying to say? So that exact message, what exactly you are trying to tell, that should be very clear. Eventually email communication is a form of communication of information from you to someone else, right? So what is that message that you are going to convey? That is something you have to ask yourself. And in business communication, as everybody says, as much as possible you try to convey that message in the beginning of the email body itself, right? Beginning of the email body. The thing is, what we generally do is we start off giving the context, we write down few lines about all the reasoning, why you are trying to tell something, and finally we tell what exactly you are trying to tell, right? That's the usual flow, and it's probably the right flow also. But in business communication, where people might be busy, they might not have enough time to go through all the content of the email, it becomes very important you convey that message, the simple message that you are trying to convey to the reader in the beginning part of the message, and you then convey the details behind why you are saying what you are saying. So it may be reasoning, or it may be data, or it may be details, right? So all that may come later, but beginning itself, so you convey the message first, then you give the details, and then you conclude, right? So that message has to be very clear. So where you say the message, that's the beginning. But the key point here I want to stress is, what is it that I want to communicate? That message you should know yourself. Okay, I want to tell him this thing has to happen by this date or time. That has to come first. Or it may be that something you are going to tell, what you have requested from me is not something which is possible. That you communicate first, and has to say reason as to why and all subsequently. So whatever that message is that you want to convey, so that has to go in the beginning, so that the audience is very clear on the email, purpose of the email and what you have communicated. Most often what happens is the message gets lost in the details. So that should not happen. So do be a bit more careful in understanding yourself and asking yourself the question, what exactly you are trying to communicate, and bring that out very clearly. Right? So that is the second tip. And the third one is, I think this is part of the communication power of 3. right? So this is probably part of the best practice in all forms of communication, where you say three things, right? Three things or three sentences or three words, which makes much more important impact than just telling a two or a list of few things, right? Somehow our mind is somehow very much in favor of listening to three things, right? Or three words, not two, not five, not four, not six, but three. Three is just an optimal number, which is not two less or not two more. So if you are communicating something, just see if you can communicate as a message, say saying hello or hi somebody, and one line, second line, and third line, and thanks, so in three lines, right? 1, 2, 3. So that could be one, or it could be an email where you will say hello, and then you say a short paragraph of say 2 lines, 2 lines, and 2 lines, right? So this is another thing. So basically what exactly happens is, it's not two less, not two more, and it's something which you can make it concise, even if it's a big text which you originally come up with, into smaller or concise 3 particular paragraphs or 3 lines, which makes it more. Or even in some cases you can say something in a few text here, 1 or 2 lines, but then have 3 bullet points, 3 key bullet points, and then conclude, and you conclude the email, right? So somehow this point number 1, 2, 3, it makes it so simple and clear. And just think about having such a structure in your email wherever possible. And if you have some 3 or 4 points, can I combine it into one bullet and keep it to 3? So try to use the power of 3, which will have more impact on your structure and the communicating message. So that is the third tip. And the fourth one, bullets, right? Sometimes we tend to forget that we can structure the email body in a more visually appealing way, instead of just simply writing few blocks of text. Simply writing the text, and then text, and another paragraph, and text. Instead, if you combine it into few bullet points, you give the text, and then say here are the notes or something. You can give a proper heading: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you conclude with the message and thanks. So first of all, it is not so hard to read. Anybody can scroll through the listing and then easily understand. And you yourself structure what exactly I'm trying to say in this bullet. What exactly I'm trying to say, convey in this message. Is it already covered here, or is it already covered here? Does it really need a separate line? Right? So if you also think through like that, and it also makes very clear in your communication. So use bullets. Not here, I'm not telling to use only 3. You are not using the power of 3, because sometimes 3 is not possible. You may have 7, or you may have 10, or you may have 11 points, whatever. You may try to structure it somewhat like you have the context, and then you have a bullet. It may have 4 bullets, and then we have some different text here, and you may have 3 bullets here, and then you have text, and then conclusion, right? So this could also be a structure. So the point here is, try to see if you can structure into bullets. It's a very simple one, but still sometimes we forget to use it. And just by using few bullet points where it makes sense, it becomes very clear for the eyes also to read it easily, because otherwise it will be visually not so easy for anybody to read. And when you try to make it into bullets, you usually end up doing smaller sentences here, instead of cluttering the overall space in the email body, and makes it visually very appealing as well. So when we're talking about the visually appealing piece, I also want to talk about visual appearance, right, of the email. We do not give that much importance since we are covering only the basic aspects of email. I would cover this one as well. So there is a way to write better emails, right? Sometimes you keep on writing the entire text if it's the email body, right? You type in all the way till here, all the way till here, and all the way till here, and then you start with the next one, and the text goes on. This is one way of writing. I'm not saying this is bad. Sometimes this looks visually appealing for some people too, but there is another way of writing. It may not be for formal communication, but to send across the message very quickly or something. In such cases, it's always better to write something of this much width instead of utilizing the entire space of full length of the email body. So look, see, this part is here, free, blank. We are writing only the text over here, and then second paragraph. It may run a little bit longer vertically because you are trying to put individual lines or shorter sentences instead of utilizing the entire space horizontally. You're utilizing only till here, this portion only, right, instead of all the full portion. So in this portion only. The thing is, some people use different sized monitors, they'll have different resolutions. Many people do not read the continuous lines. When it is very concise sentences and separated into separate lines, it is easy to flow, it is easy to go through, and it is not harsh on the eyes as well. So just look at the lines here versus here. Which one is more readable? This one, right? This is a shorter sentence, very concise, very easy on the eyes. You can read easily. So I have seen people with very much experience using this form of structure. It's an informal, very quick email conversations, right? Not necessarily you are taking a lot of time to write it down. In such cases where you just want to convey the message and you want to make sure that there is nothing lost in the email, you clearly call out each individual points in a very small, concise lines. Simple words, visually appealing, easy to go through, message is communicated, job done. Right? So that visual appearance, just give the importance. And if you're adding more data, text, etc., do not clutter also. So if you're having let's say a table to be added in the email body, you say a sentence, keep a simple table. That's it. Do not clutter with too many graphs, which makes it very easy for the if you keep it very simple, it is very visually appealing and easy for the reader to go through it easily. Right, so that is the tip on the visual appearance. We covered the bullets, we covered power of 3, we covered the visual appearance, and one important aspect I would like to cover next, that is around the two-part, right, in the email body, and how are you addressing. So the thing is, in a work environment, there may be several people involved in the work. In that email body's context, it could be possible that there are several people involved in that work. There are many people in the to, there may be people in the CC. So it becomes very important to write down and tell whom you are telling what you are telling to. Right? So say if you are asking to do something for somebody, call out the name or clearly highlight who the person is going to be responsible for. I'm just giving an example, because usually what happens if you have multiple people in the to and you just mention, say, hi all and do something, nobody will be clear who has to do what, right? So then becomes ambiguous. So mainly to become unambiguous, just clearly write down who you are addressing by addressing, right? Clearly mention who you are addressing. This person has to do this by so and so. Let's say that you are a manager or a supervisor, you are giving an order or something, or you are requesting somebody else to do it as well. Just make sure that who you are requesting to, so that there is no confusion between 10 or 12 people who are there on the email chain as to who has to do what, right? If there are multiple people who has to do multiple different activities, mention in the bullets, this is the activity, owner is this is the activity, owner is this, and this one owner is this, right? So that way it becomes very clear. So don't just mention hi, all, or just all, and just keep it like that. So that is the one part where you have to make sure, because sometimes these things may look like very simple small things, but when you are in a very critical situation and you just assume that people will just pick up and do things, only to realize later that the email message was not clear as to who has to do what and nothing gets done. So you should avoid that. So make it unambiguous, just make it very simple, plain and clear who all needs to do what, right? And similarly, there are some things we need to take care. Say for example, you are going to add some person in either the to list or CC. Just mention in the body that you are adding so and so for so and so reason, because it may be possible that there is an email conversation going on, it's very context specific, and there are certain set of people who need to be made aware of that, and you are adding them for that reason. You mention that adding X and Y people in CC for information or for getting the visibility on so and so so and so activity that is going on in this email chain. So you mention that, so it becomes transparent and everybody comes to know as well as to you are adding somebody. Even if you're taking it or somebody also, you can mention that it's more relevant, you're moving them to BCC, all of that you mention. It's a simple etiquette, but it's very important that you do that. And similarly, there are a few other things you need to take care, in the sense that reply all, there is an option for replying all, and not necessarily the case that it always has to be replied. All the people need not be replied in certain cases, especially when there is a conflict going on between the people on the email chain. Somebody's fighting with each other. It happens in the work life anyway. So it's sometimes best to not to reply all, have one-on-one conversation. It may not be the best mode for email at all. Sometimes it's sitting together or going on a coffee or just sitting across the table and talking may be much better, or just chatting on the messengers may be much better than just continuing the conversation on emails. And especially when there are multiple people involved and when there is not a necessity to do communication for everybody, replying all may not be required. So need to be careful about that. So yeah, so that's the part, being unambiguous, being clear on to or CC part about reply all. And in all of this, the key point here is that you have to make the communication clear and convey the message, right, to required audience. It may be sometimes a bit lengthy, but you write a good email with all the details required. Think through from user's perspective and think will they have any doubts or any questions they may still be wanting me to answer, and you cover all of that in the email body. You may take a slightly bit more time, but then if it answers all the questions that the reader probably might have, then it's a very effective way to get things done and to communicate what you want to communicate in an effective manner. So I have seen some people taking very good amount of time and beautifully written emails, right? Each and every word is utilized very effectively. Each and every sentence is crisp, sharp, covering most of the information in a concise and good manner. And it's also talking about the deadlines, when he will come back, Say for example, you do not want to be disturbed after you send the email with n number of follow-ups and questions. You apparently mention upfront, you mention on the email itself saying that I'm doing this things. You are expected to do this things by so and so date, and here are the details, and if you're not able to find, this is what you can do. You cover all the aspects so that the reader does not have any more questions as much as possible, so that you productively utilize the time for both the writer as well as the reader. So that's the intent of writing that good mail. And the final step, right? Proofread. So the thing is, this is a very important step, and sometimes in a hurry we miss it, and sometimes we do not know the importance of it as much as ideally we should, and give the importance to it every time. Sometimes we think we have communicated, sometimes we think we have written what was there in the mind, but usually it does not come out that way, and you might have to edit. And unless you do that, properly read it and then send it out, and take that extra 1 or 2 minutes to read word by word, just taking your mind off from the email and coming back to it once again in a fresh eye and mind, and check, have you covered all that you wanted to cover? Have you conveyed the message clearly which you intended to convey through that email, right? And correct any small mistakes that may be there, or sentence does not read properly, or it is sounding a little bit abrupt, or anything like that. You will be able to correct once you start reading. And an email written first time will never be good. It would be an accident if it is good, because more often than not, there is a chance that something you can effectively correct it and make it better. And it doesn't mean that daily context you are having 1,000 mails to send, let's say, so many mails to send back and forth. It may not be practical for all of those emails to be proofread very accurately and then send it out. That is understandable, but very important mails, I think it is required to go through what you have written, make sure the message that you are conveying is intended message, and it is coming out very clearly without any ambiguity, and any small minor errors, maybe it's spelling mistakes or anything to do with the flow of the sentences, maybe the grammar. Don't let those small things come in the way to make your email look not well written. So that proofreading becomes very important. Maybe it's so correct flow, correct spelling mistakes, right? Grammar, correct the grammar. Check for message. Has it been conveyed or not? Right? So just one tip here is have it in your email box. Until you do this, do not send it out. Maybe you put double quotes or quotes in BCC field, so that even if you accidentally press send button, it will not go out, and it will pop up a message saying there is an extra characters or something in the BCC field. So that way you can avoid sending the mail out without properly completing the proofreading. But do make sure to take some time to read through these and then send out the email, because just that little editing, little proofreading will make sure that you increase the percentage of effectiveness of your email by much more points. Just a small amount of time, but increases the effectiveness much more than the time you spend on reading and editing the email. Okay, so I think we covered some key 7 points there. If I go back, all the things that we have covered, let's just go back one by one. As I said, these are all the basic parts of the email. There is advanced topic we will get into, but these are very basic. Probably you are already aware, you are already doing it. If you are doing it already, well and good, but if you are not, I am hopeful that you got at least some useful ideas and tips so you can apply this in the email that you write next. So just a quick recap: subject, make it relatable, mention the urgency or importance, deadlines if any, so that it becomes very quick read for anybody without even going through the body. And do not change the subject line, but if you are going to change for an existing email, just mention that in the email body. So subject should carry the message very quickly and effectively as much as possible. And then the message should have you should have the clarity as to what exactly the message you are conveying, and convey that in the beginning of the email itself. Do not delay it, and then you can come up with the reasoning, data, details to substantiate that particular message. But you need to know what is the message that you're conveying. More often than not, when we get in busy and when we get into too many details, we forget the message itself. So that's the second point. Third point, use the power of 3. Use 3 sentences, 3 paragraphs, 3 bullets. It makes it so easy, not too less, not too more, very effective. And as much as possible, and there are more points to share, make it in a structured communication instead of a cluttered communication. Use bullets, very simple lines, concise lines. If there are too many number of, break it down as much as possible and show multiple bullets. Very easy on the eyes as well as for clarity. Fifth one, visual appearance. Apart from the bullets, also use shorter sentences. Instead of taking the entire width of the email body, use only a smaller portion of the email body. May visually appealing, even if you are using tables, everything, keep it very succinct and concise so that it's visually readable. And just have a take your eyes off and come back to the email and see whether it is very simple to go through and readable. That's important, because more people see the shorter sentences, it is more likely that they will read the further lines. A sixth tip: while you are address without ambiguity. Make it very clear as to who has to do what is it addressed to, what is the message. Clearly mention who is in the to, clearly mention who is in the CC. If you're adding somebody, mention that, not reply all. So all that we are doing is to make it very clear and conveying the message to the intended audience. So make sure that are you doing that effectively or not. Just check it out. And seventh one, definitely take some time, maybe 1 minute, maybe 2 minutes or 3 minutes, whatever, to proofread what you have written. Edit it before you send it out. Make sure you insert some special characters in the say BCC field to avoid the email being accidentally sent out, so that you come back to the email, do proper editing and send it out. And just by spending small amount of time over there, make sure that your email effectiveness is much more better than how it was if you do not do it. Right, so those were some 7 tips in terms of how to write effective emails at work at the basic level. As I said, these are all basic stuff, it's not advanced stuff. There are a lot more we can learn and try to do on a regular basis on our day-to-day work life on the advanced skills that we will cover next. Hope you found some useful ideas in this session. Thank you.